The story begins with the popular kids making their stereotypical stroll through the school hallways, while everyone gossips about them. Susan, the student council president and a superstar, is accompanied by Kazuki, a certified nerd who serves as her vice president. Some people naturally attract attention, but our average protagonist, Usato, doesn't see himself that way. Usato considers himself a forgettable, run-of-the-mill high school student. The most thrilling event in his bland life is returning some pigeon babies to their nest. Deep down, though, Usato yearns for an extraordinary life. Fortunately for him, he's the protagonist of this anime. Right now, however, it's raining, and Usato doesn't have an umbrella. For a moment, his darker side tempts him to take someone else's umbrella, but he decides against it, fearing the slippery slope to a life of crime over a $5 umbrella. This turns out to be a poor choice, as he ends up waiting for hours. Sujin appears out of nowhere and informs him that all students must leave. Forgettable as he is, Usato decides to run home in the rain, but Sujin stops him. It would reflect poorly on the student council to let him get soaked, so Kazuki shows up and lends him a spare umbrella. Usato is surprised that Kazuki even knows he exists, and even more so when Kazuki seems nice. They offer to walk home together, and Sujin suggests it must be fate. Usato's nerdy mind immediately likens this to a video game event, walking home with two of the most popular kids. He almost ruins the moment by mentioning that everyone at school would be jealous, but fortunately, they don't hear his embarrassing comment. During the walk, Usato tells Kazuki he didn't expect him to be so nice, as he always sees him flirting with the girls. Kazuki explains that he talks to the girls out of pity, and Sujin teases him, saying he prefers talking to boys anyway. Sujin is even more unapproachable for Usato, being top of her class and excellent at sports. Usato praises her further, noting she's beautiful inside and out. Acting like a gossip reporter, Usato finally asks if they are dating since everyone at school talks about it. The walk becomes awkward, but they explain they spend time together because of the student council. Usato apologizes for the foolish question he shouldn't have asked, but Sujin doesn't mind, saying it's better than rumors behind their backs. Their incredibly dull conversation continues as they discuss their post-graduation plans, none of which are yet decided. Despite being in her third year, Sujin faces a major problem. She hasn't found her true calling, despite easily achieving any goal she sets. Foreshadowing what's about to unfold, Sujin admits she feels like she doesn't belong in this world, leaving Usato shocked. Though they are completely different, he understands the sentiment. Just as the conversation gets unbearably boring, they are interrupted by the sound of bells, which only the two student council members hear. The ringing grows louder, but Usato hears nothing. As he approaches them, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a portal to another world. Instead of being scared, Sujin looks thrilled and asks if Usato thinks they'll encounter magic, monsters, and heroes. Usato is surprised by her enthusiasm, but time runs out, and they are transported away. Usato wakes up to find them in front of a king. The boys are terrified and cautious, but Sujin is inexplicably excited. The king, with the painfully mundane name of Lloyd, introduces himself. Kazuki, impatient and angry, demands to know why they were brought there. Lloyd prevents his guard from slicing Kazuki for his rudeness and reveals his identity as king, which is obvious. While the boys are still in shock, Sujin is thrilled. Lloyd explains that they were summoned to be heroes, fulfilling Sujin's wildest dreams. 2 years ago, the world was attacked by the Demon King and his army. Though they were driven off, the Demon Lord's power is growing. As a last resort, they summon accomplished individuals from another world using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. Usato tries to remind Sujin of the seriousness of the situation, while Kazuki loses his temper. He doesn't care about heroes or demon lords and is furious about being summoned without consent. He demands to be sent back, refusing to accept his new role. Unfortunately, the hero summoning only works one way, so returning is impossible. Kazuki still wants to go back to his life, but the king apologizes, explaining their desperate need for help. Kazuki's incessant whining finally pushes the guards to threaten him into silence. Usato calms Kazuki down, and the king shocks everyone by bowing before them. He promises to find them a way back eventually, but asks for their help in the meantime. Sujin, after getting over her excitement about being a cicade, wonders why the king calls them heroes without knowing anything about them. A small guy named Welchi explains that the hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She adds that hearing bells ring before being summoned indicates they are heroes. This worries Usato, as he was the only one who didn't hear ringing and wonders if he was brought by accident. Welchi then takes him to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuki asks if Usato's okay with this, but Usato is reassured by Welchi, who tells him he might still be able to use magic even if he isn't a hero. Kazuki thinks Usato should be more upset, but Usato isn't as whiny as him and suggests they try to be more like the excited Sujun. Sujun is the first to be tested, and the crystal reveals her affinity for thunder magic and a large amount of mana. Sujun is thrilled, and it's now Kazuki's turn. He barely touches the crystal, and Welchi is amazed when it turns white, indicating light magic. Sujun jokes that Kazuki might shoot laser beams from his eyes or use light swords, but Usato points out that Kazuki probably has no idea what she means. Sujun scolds Usato for his sharp tongue, but realizes she likes it, much to Usato's dismay. Welchi explains that light magic is rare and powerful against demons. After the high bar set by the first two, it's Usato's turn. He hopes to have at least a tiny bit of power to help Sujun and Kazuki. When his crystal changes color, everyone finds it soothing, but Welchi is shocked and drags Usato away without a word. She urgently takes him to the king and explains that the other two have great abilities. But there's something more important about Usato. The king jokes about Usato having dark magic, but Welchi reveals the crystal turned green, shocking the guards. King Lloyd stops Welchi from explaining further and quickly orders Usato to be taken away from the castle, leaving Usato confused about his magic affinity. They try to think of the safest place to send him, and Usato wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic, and there happens to be another person, a certain girl whose name the king doesn't want spoken. Unfortunately for King Coward, this girl barges in. Everyone is terrified when they find out her name is Rose, and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping she took the day off, but Rose would never do that. She questions if Usato is a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just a nerd who got teleported by accident. Desperately trying to hide the truth, the king tells Rose that Usato is super ordinary. Rose introduces herself to Usato as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, but Usato feels this angry girl seems more like the type to take lives, not save them. Welchi, perhaps a genius, diffuses the situation and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Usato, oblivious to the tension, asks the king what his green-colored crystal meant. Rose, still within earshot, terrifies everyone with a reaction. Usato confirms his crystal is green, and Rose tells the king she'll be borrowing the boy. The king, acting quickly, urgently tells Welchi to get Usato away. Welchi uses bubble magic to quickly whisk him out of there, but Rose takes off after him immediately. Rose, showing her incredible power, destroys the bubble and captures Usato. Everyone is left in shock, and Rose declares she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Unable to handle the situation, Welchi faints, and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows she has been searching for other healing magic users, but his pleas go ignored as they are already gone. Back at the castle, Usato's new friends, who have done nothing this whole time, are shocked to hear Usato was taken away. Welchi explains that his life isn't in danger, but it's still bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady who took him is one of them. She intends to train Usato as her subordinate. No matter how hard Susanette thinks, she can't see the problem. Luckily, Welchi explains it to her like a toddler, revealing that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At her base, Rose explains that Usato only has the potential to become a healing magic user, which is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his new home, and she calls on her team. Usato is terrified by these extreme dudes, and Rose tells them they will be looking after him. She advises them to play nice, but they look like lunatics as they introduce themselves. Usato fears the worst in every possible situation, wondering if he's some kind of offering being sacrificed to these monsters. Rose tells them not to scare Usato, though she is the most terrifying of all. The boys explain that this is their idea of being nice, but Usato doubts these brutes know what that means. Rose clarifies that while these Methiads are her subordinates, they are not healing magic users. There are two other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get to business, so Rose explains she will beat the knowledge of healing magic into his tiny brain. Usato is in a permanent state of disbelief, as every fiber of his being tells him to stay away from this insane person. He timidly asks if he could learn from another teacher, but Rose ignores him and declares that training starts tomorrow. She instructs the brute named Tong to let Usato stay in his room and tells them to eat dinner before getting rest. Once she leaves, the guys hit Usato with the brutal reality: he's screwed. Rose will be training him herself and putting him through hell. They laugh at his expense, saying hell might be the least of his worries. That night, Usato wonders what will happen to him, but he finally shows a bit of optimism, certain that things will be okay. He might be wrong, as not even Rose knows what will happen. When Usato wakes up, he explains that he hoped it was all a dream. Unfortunately, it's not, and he really is in another world. Suzue and Kazuki arrive to visit him, having heard he was abducted. Usato tells them not to worry, but he has PTSD from the day before and gets depressed remembering that he will start the training from hell today. Determined to go through with it, he wants to make himself useful. Sujun explains that they will begin their training as well, and they all decide to do their best. When they leave, Usato feels a bit bad for them being thrown into this situation, but quickly remembers that Sujun is having the time of her life. Regardless, Usato just hopes to grow strong enough to support the two heroes one day. Miss Rose startles him, but she points out that this isn't a prison, and he can see whoever he wishes when he's not training. She gives him a journal to record his daily training regimen and feelings about it. They will have breakfast first, and Usato can't believe the training from hell is about to begin. After breakfast, training begins, but Usato doesn't find it too bad. Rose instructs him to feel the mana in his body and practice drawing it out. He needs to perfect sensing it, so she has him do some reading. Usato is surprised to find he can read the language of this world, thanks to translation magic cast on summoned heroes. Rose shows him how close the demon territory is to the kingdom and explains why they are always the demon's first target. The book contains extensive information about the demons and other races in this world, so she leaves him to study. The first day of training seems easy, so he feels confident about handling it. Day 2 is much different than he expected, involving a lot of running, making him question if this is what magic training entails. On day 3, Usato runs until his muscles are so sore he collapses. Rose, wondering what he's doing, smacks him, and he realizes she's healed his muscles. Rose keeps the intensity high, calling him trash and commanding him to keep running, saying she will revive him so he can continue. Usato, unable to voice his thoughts about her craziness, plans to write it in his journal. On day 4, Usato trains with the other members, but falls behind by an entire lap. They trash talk him, but he decides to record it in his journal. Day 5 and 6 involve more running and Rose's berating, building up Usato's anger, which he again plans to vent in his journal. He is then shocked to see healing magic light on his hand. The training is tough, but not tough enough to need healing, so the light fades. On day 7, Usato runs until he feels like he'll die, and Rose beats him up. She seems angrier than usual, leading Usato to wonder if she discovered his journal insults. He realizes she can't read Japanese and guesses she can tell by his expression. Rose launches him into the sky to run again, and Usato vows to call her a vicious gorilla in his journal. Day 8 is similar, but on day 9, Usato realizes he needs to heal himself. He is surprised to heal his entire body instead of just the sore parts. He admits he was wrong about healing magic and really needs it. On day 10, Usato explains he doesn't get tired anymore no matter how much he runs since he can now manifest healing magic at will. However, he grows concerned as all he's been doing is running. Usato wonders if he'll be able to help his friends at this rate, but knows Rose would just punch him if he voiced his concerns. Rose, upset anyway, orders him to run another 30 laps. That night, Usato enjoys a bath and thinks about controlling his strength so Sujun doesn't lose her composure again. He realizes she's right. His body has changed dramatically. He's been healing his muscles repeatedly after damaging them from strenuous exercise, resulting in a shredded physique. However, he questions if he has the mental fortitude to match his body for rescuing people on the battlefield. The next morning, Rose informs Usato they will be going out, and the other guys seem worried. At the gate, a guard nearly wets himself as Rose tells him she wants to show her subordinate the outside world. The guard rushes to open the gate, and Usato thinks about how Rose's mere presence can scare someone. Outside the gate, Usato asks where they are going, but Rose tells him to keep quiet and follow her. They eventually arrive at the forest known as the Darkness of Llinger. The place is notorious for its monsters, and to Usato's shock, Rose orders him not to return until he has hunted down a grand grizzly. Usato thinks there's been a misunderstanding and reminds her that blue grizzlies only become grand grizzlies after living for 100 years. His book even mentioned that blue grizzlies alone are extremely dangerous. Rose insists he should handle it easily, but Usato points out that he's only been running and has no idea how to fight. Without any explanation, Rose launches him towards the forest. As Usato plummets from the sky, he panics, fearing he won't survive. But just then, his body glows with healing magic. Determined to survive, he uses his magic to cushion the fall. Amazed that he survived, Usato heals himself, ready to do what Rose asked. Knowing he can't return until he succeeds, he tries to stay positive, convincing himself that a 2-meter-tall bear shouldn't be too hard. However, when it appears behind him, he's stunned by its enormous size and huge claws. Feeling confident about his speed, Usato soon realizes the bear can keep up. Remembering his hellish training, he turns to face the bear, only for it to retreat. Usato runs again, calling the bear a coward for ganging up on him. Hearing a waterfall, he jumps into it to escape. The bears give up, and Usato uses the time to regroup. With only rations, a canteen, and a knife, he wishes Rose had given him something to start a fire. Taking down a grand grizzly seems impossible, but he leaves that task for tomorrow. Just glad to have survived the first day, he sleeps in a pile of leaves. The next day, Usato begins his hunt. Deciding he needs to learn more about his enemy, he looks for signs of the bear's habitat and finds scratch marks on a tree. Hearing rustling in the bushes, he prepares for a fight, but finds an injured monster that looks like a rabbit. He heals it and tells it to be more careful. As he continues hunting, the bunny follows him. Usato tries to explain he's searching for a dangerous monster, but the bunny won't leave. He starts to wonder if the rabbit is leading him to the grand grizzly. Usato follows it, and sure enough, it leads him right to the bears. Usato plans to observe the bears without being detected and notices that they seem to be a family. During a break, he drinks some questionable water, and is surprised to see the bunny still with him. Returning to his observations, Usato starts to think the blue grizzlies are kind of cute, and his bunny companion is adorable too, making forest life seem pleasant. However, his stomach soon suffers from the water, and despite using his healing magic, he realizes he's been poisoned. The next day, the bunny leads him to clean water, which is delicious. The bunny suddenly becomes anxious as a monster approaches, even unafraid of the grand grizzly. The bunny's fear indicates a serious threat. Usato hears a noise in the darkness and is horrified to see a giant snake, an unbelievable monster not mentioned in his book. The snake oozes bloodlust, and Usato, sensing its danger, decides to avoid it. 4 days pass, but Usato can't shake an uneasy feeling. He's been observing the bears, but nothing has changed, and he knows he can't go home without defeating the grand grizzly. Determined, he resolves to face it the next day. However, when the rain stops and he sets out, the bunny tries to stop him. Ignoring it, Usato readies for battle but is shocked to find the bears already dead. The bite marks indicate the snake killed them for sport, not food. A bear cub emerges, trying to wake its mother. Usato, hating to lose especially to Rose and angry his prey was stolen, vows revenge for the crying cub. Meanwhile, Usato's friends, worried about him, visit and are shocked to learn he's been training in the forest for 10 days. They think it's too long, but explain that Rose makes all the decisions. Rose is absent, so they have no idea what's happening. Kazuki is particularly worried, but Sujun believes Usato will be fine since Rose wouldn't have sent him if he wasn't ready. Additionally, Sujun trusts Usato and believes he'll return soon. In the forest, Usato refuels with some snacks and crafts a spear. He instructs his little bunny to lead him to the snake and then flee. The bunny guides him on a long journey through the forest until they finally find the snake, which is attacking the little cub. Usato is upset as he told the cub to stay home. The snake is terrifying, but Usato insists there's nothing scarier than Rose. The snake seems confused when Usato attacks, but it almost eats him. Usato counters with a stab to its eye but gets knocked back and must heal himself. He blinds the snake on one side and decides to attack from that direction. Despite the snake's danger, it bites Usato's arm. In immense pain, Usato realizes the snake baited him into attacking its blind spot. Furious, he reveals his bitten arm held a knife. Usato heals his arm enough to stab the snake from inside its mouth. Holding his own, he realizes he's been poisoned. This fight is unfair, but Usato can heal himself. Poisoned water forced him to learn healing from within. Usato heals himself and prepares to attack again. The snake is about to end his life with a tail swing when the cub steps in to help. They show great teamwork as the bear lets Usato jump off its back to get on the snake. Usato curses the snake and lands a powerful punch. Determined to end the battle, he drives the spear into the snake's head, yelling and giving it his all as the bear pins the snake down. They eventually defeat the snake, and Usato can't believe it. The bear seems fond of Usato and points out their revenge. Usato wants to heal the cub, but uses all his mana to neutralize the venom and can't move. To his shock, the snake gets back up, unable to move. Usato tells the cub to run away. The snake moves in to end his life, and Usato thinks about everyone he cares about. He blames the situation on Rose and yells that she's a violent ogre. Just then, the violent ogre descends from the sky and shockingly stomps on the snake. Her angry attitude causes her to call the snake an idiot when Usato wonders how she knew to come help him. Rose reveals that Kokoro, her pet bunny, told her she had instructed Kokoro to watch over Usato. Usato explains that the rabbit showed up injured and seeking help, but Rose just calls him a sucker. Kokoro wore a necktie to gain his trust, and he fell for it. Rose was always nearby in case she needed to step in, but she planned to intervene as little as possible. However, she never expected the giant snake to appear. This snake was created by the Demon Lord's army, and Siglis failed to finish it off during the last invasion. She never thought it could defeat a Grand Grizzly, which is strong enough to take down a full unit of elite troops. Usato can't believe she wanted a rookie like him to face such a monster, and thinks about how much of a monster she is. Rose explains that she never expected Usato to win. The goal was for him to gain experience fighting something much stronger than him. Things got interesting with Usato, so she decided to let him continue to see what would happen. Usato points out that he almost lost his life, and his little cub backs him up. The cub has clearly taken a liking to him, and Usato remembers its parents aren't alive, so it's all alone. Usato calms his new buddy, and Rose realizes she was right. Usato is a lot like her. She angrily tells the bear it will be coming with them, and will carry the loser, who couldn't even die properly. Usato wonders if the cub is okay with this, but it's a mature bear and ready to go. They prepare to head back, but Usato can't help but think how terrifying Rose is as she carries him, and the bear over her shoulder. Rose reveals that she heard what he said about her being an ogre. She then terrifies him by saying he won't be getting any sleep tonight. They head home, and Rose reveals that Usato actually passed the test with flying colors. Usato is surprised to hear that he is now qualified for something, and Rose explains that he's now qualified to stand beside her on the battlefield. He still hasn't mastered the basics, but Usato has what it takes: pain tolerance, physical aptitude, and a strong mental state. The other two healers never earned that distinction, so she tells Usato he should be proud. Usato wonders what she means by saying they might be able to make it, and he's shocked when Rose reveals that the demon army will be attacking soon. Elsewhere, the Demon Lord wonders how preparations are going for the invasion of the Llinger Kingdom. Amila, the commander of the Third Army, reports that their units are ready and will soon advance. Rose reveals that Usato will be on the front lines with her, healing the wounded, and will be part of the vanguard. There are two other healers, but they play different roles. Usato knows he can't use healing magic like she can, but Rose reminds him they still have some time. She wants him to improve, and Usato wonders if he can really do it. Meanwhile, the Demon Lord assigns Amila to lead the army. Despite their past successes, the Llinger Kingdom has escaped their grasp before. Amila vows to win the battle and is dismissed. The Demon Doctor then mocks Amila for being nervous in front of the Demon Lord. Amila, who dislikes him, tells him to focus on his work. The Doctor, Hiriluk, reveals he has completed a new demon-made monster prototype. It is highly venomous with a large body and sharp fangs. Named Demon-Made Monster Prototype 72, Buljanak. His last prototype went missing during the previous attack on the Llinger Kingdom, wounded by Siglis. Hiriluk promises this one is much stronger, and Amila hopes so because there are more troublesome people in the Llinger Kingdom, known as kidnappers. These people do not fight, but carry their injured away without the enemy noticing, minimizing their own casualties. Their leader is a healer who moves around the front lines, healing on the spot. This is Rose, and Amila is infuriated by her because she is a top-notch fighter who holds a deep grudge against the Demon Lord. Amila vows to eliminate her, but Hiriluk reminds her she can't fight as the commander. She plans to send the immortal Mage of Darkness, the Black Knight. Back home, Usato finally enjoys a bed's comfort again. He feeds his little bear buddy some fruit and snacks on some himself. The cub, a bit of a jerk, takes Usato's apple. Usato then finds the traitor there as well, a rabbit who toyed with his heart. Despite trying to resist its cuteness, he eventually feeds it some fruit. Rose arrives, amused that Usato named the bear Blurren, combining blue for its color and grizzly. Blurren accidentally bites Usato's hand. Rose informs the kingdom about the bear, allowing them to keep it. Rose tells Blurren he has to earn his keep, terrifying him as she terrifies everyone else. Usato wonders what she has planned, and moments later, we see him carrying Blurren. This will be his simulation training, and Usato is to think of the bear as someone who needs rescuing. Rose has him start running, which is easy for Usato since it's just like running with extra weight. As long as he manages his mana, he'll be fine. Rose demands he run faster, as the wounded won't last if he takes too long. Suddenly, Tong and another of the Methiods appear, revealing that Rose told them to simulate the battlefield. They tell Usato to stay focused as others are waiting to ambush him too. 1 hour later, Usato is dodging one of the Methiod's special stink water and avoiding another attack. 3 hours later, he's hopping over logs, and 4 hours later, he's trying not to trample the traitor. Eventually, Usato feels strange and starts wondering what's happening to him. He collapses, and Rose explains he's reached his endurance limit. Humans feel exhaustion from nervousness, fear, and impatience, which is why he ran out of strength faster than normal. To improve, he needs to get used to it and acquire the mental fortitude and decisiveness that don't falter in the face of fear. Rose heals him but tells him to spend the rest of the afternoon running around the castle town, still carrying Blurren. As Usato runs, everyone is shocked to see a blue bear. Usato expected this reaction since Blurren, despite being friendly, is still a monster. The people, however, become eerily calm, realizing something. Blurren leads Usato to some fresh fruit, but Usato has no money. He learns the green fruit is called a peffel and asks the merchant why everyone is so calm despite him carrying a monster. She explains it's because they recognize Usato's rescue team clothes. They often see scary-looking men from the rescue team, so they're used to it. This makes sense to Usato. If those guys' faces don't scare the townspeople, nothing will. The nice lady gives them a peffel for free, and Blurren shoves Usato's hand into his mouth. As they leave, a girl named Amako shows interest in the boy from the rescue team. Usato decides to visit his friends and doesn't notice when a guy tries to get his attention. Usato eventually figures it out and heals the guy, who introduces himself as Orga, one of the rescue team's healers. Orga is surprised to learn Usato was summoned with the heroes, and Usato explains he's been so busy training he almost forgot himself. Orga is impressed Usato can keep up with Rose's training since it was impossible for him and his sister, who is 5 years younger, and the other healer. They run a clinic in the city, using healing magic to treat the citizens. Orga collapsed earlier because he's terrible at healing himself, though he's much better at healing others. Despite this, he's still part of the rescue team and works under Captain Rose when needed. Usato wonders what war will be like for them, so Orga explains that Tong and the others bring injured soldiers to the rear, where he and his sister heal them. Orga is shocked when Usato tells him that Rose wants him on the vanguard, and Usato wonders if he can handle it. Orga explains that the knights and heroes fighting on the front lines are in the greatest danger, making Usato think of his friends. Normally, when they fall injured and get left behind, all they can do is wait for death. However, with a rescue team, they can be saved. It's a dangerous and exhausting job, but Rose wouldn't choose someone she didn't completely trust. Before Orga leaves, he asks Usato not to hate Rose too much. He knows she isn't the nicest person, but explains that she's just clumsy with people. Usato surprises him by revealing he has never hated Rose, even if he does have unresolved issues with her. When Usato leaves, Orga expresses relief that Rose has finally found someone. Orga's sister Yuru arrives, and he tells her that he just met someone interesting. They will meet soon enough, and he's sure Yuru will like him. At the castle, Usato is allowed to enter with Blurren because Rose vouched for him. Usato thanks the guard and reflects on how many people trust Rose. Usato runs past people training and finds Sujin. She is glad to see him, but wonders what the blue thing on his back is. Usato tells her about his forced adventure, but she just wants to know if she can touch the bear. Usato lets her and promises to heal her if she gets bitten. Suzun considers herself the heroine of their story, so she is certain the animals are supposed to love her. She is very wrong, as Blurren hilariously slaps her hand away. Usato tries to make her feel better by saying Blurren is just shy and has her try calling his name. Suzun politely asks Blurren to be friends, but he just bites her hand instead. Usato fails to make her feel better this time and suggests she might have a tainted soul. Usato has Blurren release her, but Blurren starts eating his hand now, making Suzun wonder if Usato has a tainted soul too. After their comedy routine, Usato notices Sujwang's hands are all roughed up, and she explains it's from intense training. Usato reminds her to treat wounds properly and heals her. Sujun is amazed and wonders if Usato came just to see her. Usato points out he came to see his friends. But that's obviously not what she wanted to hear. Sujun reveals that Kazuki went outside the kingdom to gain experience fighting monsters with Siglis and the other. Siglis informs Kazuki that the Demon Lord will attack soon, bringing more powerful forces this time. However, Siglis reassures Kazuki that their troops' morale is soaring now that they have him and Sujun, who are considered heroes. Siglis is confident of victory, but Kazuki has his doubts. He gathers himself and promises to do his best. Just then, they encounter some monsters and prepare for battle. When Kazuki returns, it will be Sujun's turn to gain experience. Usato can tell she will have the time of her life, but she wishes he would worry about her. Usato says he does, but Sujun points out he didn't seem sincere, and they have a good laugh. Usato leaves, and Sujun wonders if he even realizes how comfortable he has become with her. As Usato runs, he thinks about how everyone is preparing for the war and wants to help them. In his old world, he could only admire people who could do things he couldn't. However, he is not that weak anymore. That night, Rose is glad to hear Usato's training is going well, but he explains he still needs to run more to get used to it. Usato stops her from leaving as he wants to discuss what she said earlier. He points out that he barely survived against the snake monster and was terrified when she mentioned the Demon Lord's army. He didn't want to set foot on the battlefield, but today, he found a feeling stronger than fear. He realizes he can fight, but refuses to take any lives. He vows to save anyone he can, declaring it's because he is part of the rescue team. That's exactly what Rose wanted to hear since they are going out there to save people. His job is to snatch up the wounded that the enemy is about to finish off and keep those at death's door alive, even if it means risking his life. Rose wants him to keep expressing those ideals since that's how the rescue team must be. This was the first moment Usato felt like part of the rescue team. The next morning, Rose reveals that the king has sent a message. He wants Usato to head out to join Sujun's training outside the castle. Usato is surprised, but Sujun couldn't be more ready. Usato wonders why he has to join Sujun and points out that Kazuki had Siglis with him. Rose explains that Usato was supposed to join Kazuki as well, but he just got back from the forest. She assures Usato he will only be there in case they need a healer and should be back home in 3 days. Sujun is glad to see Usato, but even more excited to have Blurren join them. She assumes he brought the bears so they can bond, but that's not the case. Usato only brought him because Blurren doesn't like anyone else. Sujun then introduces him to Aruku the knight and Korin the mage. Usato recognizes the guy and recalls he used to be a mere side character guarding the castle gate. Rose explains to Sujun that Usato's healing magic isn't all-powerful. It can heal wounds and cure poison, but it can't bring people back from the dead. She warns them not to take it for granted, and Sujun completely understands. Rose is confident they will be fine since Sujun was trained by Siglis and has nothing to say to Usato. Usato knew she wouldn't have anything nice to say anyway, so Rose leaves them. Sujun can tell Rose is really strong, but Usato doesn't get what she means. Sujun lets it go, and they set out for training. Back at the castle, Sully is worried when she sees Kazuki practicing his sword strikes. She points out that he just got back from training, but he assures her he got plenty of rest. The shy Sully is glad but asks him to take care of himself before she leaves. Sujun tells Usato about how exhausted Kazuki was after training, but Kazuki said the experience was definitely worth it. He battled many monsters in a clearing near the darkness of Llinger, which is exactly what they will be doing too. Usato, just back from there, wonders if Blurren misses home. Sujun tries to take advantage of Blurren sleeping by petting him, but Usato watches out for his bear. Sujun doesn't like how he talks down to her and wonders if he's become a misogynist. Blurren wakes up, but still drowsy, tries to walk. Sujun, ever the genius, offers to carry him on her back. Usato thinks it's a terrible idea, but Sujun loves how fluffy Blurren is. Her joy is short-lived as she collapses under the weight of the big cub. After Usato heals her, Korin detects multiple entities ahead. Aruku tells the others to get back, and some bandits appear, disappointed to have been found. They planned an ambush to rob the group. Aruku refuses to give up any goods, but the bandits point out they are outnumbered. Usato takes one look at the bandits and thinks they aren't intimidating. He assures Sujun they aren't a threat, but she's amazed to see bandits for the first time. The bandits are terrified to see a blue bear, but realize it's just a cub. The horrible guys decide to catch and skin it alive, but Sujin instantly defends Blurren. Usato is impressed that Sujin used such a powerful attack while sparing the bandits' lives and encourages her to go all out. The bandits decide to avoid the magic attacks by getting in close range. Usato treats Sujin like a Pokemon and instructs her to use Thunderbolt. Sujin easily defeats the bandits, but doesn't like being treated like Pikachu. Aruku joins the fight, but they are interrupted by a horde of boars. This is shocking since boars live much deeper in the forest, and Blurren steps in to push them back. Usato takes a hit while protecting Sujin and uses his healing magic to brace their fall. They end up falling through some trees and into a river, but Sujin is in bad shape. Usato realizes it's the same river he jumped into before and remembers a waterfall is ahead. He tells Sujin to take a deep breath and blacks out. When out of the river, Sujin sees Usato isn't waking up, so she vows to get him to safety. She plans to repay her debt for him saving her, but Usato reveals he just woke up and is fine. He's only a little embarrassed now, but so is she. Usato explains he was just taking a break after pulling her out of the water, but everything is fine now. Usato heals her while she apologizes, but he explains he wouldn't want to be stranded with anyone else. Usato then explains that Rose left him in this forest before and it's filled with monsters that make those boars they just saw look like pets. A check of their inventory reveals they don't even have enough food to last one night. Sujin thinks they should prioritize escaping the forest if it's really as dangerous as he says, but Usato points out it's going to get dark soon. It might also rain, so they need to find a spot to camp for the night. Usato says they can sleep on a tree branch like he did before, but Sujin reveals she has never climbed a tree. She always wanted to, but was never allowed to. Usato wonders if she was raised by strict parents and decides they can take shelter from the rain in a little cave. Usato recommends she get out of her wet clothes, but she makes him promise not to peek first. Afterwards, Sujin uses her lightning ability to catch some fish and start a fire, and Usato couldn't be happier to have her around. Sujin awkwardly sits away from Usato and notices he is even more ripped than before. Just then, some venom monkeys appear. He does, but he also has a reason to stay. Sujin doesn't hesitate to say that she doesn't want to go back and is surprised that Usato doesn't ask why. She wants him to ask, but Usato thinks he already knows. He correctly assumes it's because she likes this world better. Sujin explains that she feels like there's nothing left for her in their old world. Her family, friends, and even her old self, she would throw it all away to stay in this new world. She has waited her entire life for a chance to be free, and in this world, there is nothing tying her down. Sujin would trade anything for this freedom, and is surprised when Usato understands. She thought he would be disappointed by who she really is, but Usato explains that he was tired of his old self as well. Tired of his ordinary life and passive self. When they first arrived, Usato just didn't want to hold his two friends back. However, now he is determined to protect her, Kazuki, and the people of the kingdom as a member of the rescue squad. Sujin understands and proclaims that she wants to protect the people as a hero. They make a pact to forget their old world and protect their here and now. Sujin is amazed by how much Usato has grown, and Usato points out how she is much more relatable now. Usato used to think that she was just a perfect girl, but Sujin is surprised since he has been treating her pretty casually. She doesn't mind though since she'd rather be close to him than admired from afar. Things get a bit awkward, so Usato goes to sleep, but Sujin teases him about being flustered. Sujin is glad they had their little chat and wishes him a good night. The next morning, the pair look for a way out of the forest but sense that a beast is approaching. The beast turns out to be Blurren, who ends up smothering Usato. Aruku is with him, but also exhausted. When he recovers, Aruku explains that they were searching the perimeter of the forest when Blurren rushed off on his own. They chased after him, and realize now that Blurren must have picked up on Usato's scent. Just then, Blurren picks up on another scent, and Usato explains that this was Blurren's home. He tells the tragic story of what happened to Blurren's parents, and everyone feels bad for the little cub. Blurren is clearly ready to leave, and Sujin points out that he seems to have made his decision. Blurren must know that his place is now by Usato's side. It's time to go home, and they declare they will be going where they belong. Usato and Sujin return to the castle, where the king is glad to see them back from the forest. Sujin apologizes for making them worry, but the king insists he should be the one apologizing. He apologizes for getting Usato mixed up in all of this, but Usato has gotten used to such situations. Realizing this might reflect poorly on Rose, Usato lies, saying he was talking about his old world. The king eagerly asks about Usato's rescue squad training, and Usato lies again, saying it's been nothing but smooth sailing. Usato is shocked by Rose's pleased expression and wonders if he's been psychologically conditioned by her. They are dismissed, but Rose and Siglis are told to stay behind. Usato notices Siglis' grave expression and wonders what they are discussing. Kazuki arrives, thinking Usato is behaving too casually. He was very worried about them, and Celia explains that Kazuki was ready to dash out of the castle for them. Sujin calls him reckless, but Usato reminds her that she was the one bitten by a poison monkey. Usato tries to share the story, but Sujin is too embarrassed to let him. Kazuki tells them how Rosa assured him they would be fine in the forest, but Usato thinks she meant the woods are easy compared to her training. Kazuki was in awe of her confidence in Usato, but Usato thinks Kazuki is naive for taking Rosa's words at face value. Usato asks that Kazuki never change and declares that only he and Rose need to be tainted. The group separates, and Celia points out how close they are. Kazuki assumes she means Suzun and Usato, but she explains she was talking about all of them. Kazuki looked like he was having a lot of fun with them, and he points out it's because they were already friends before coming to this world. Celia wants to be their friend, so she asks Kazuki to stop addressing her formally. She apologizes for being forceful, but Kazuki agrees to call her Celia from now on. In the castle, the king explains that they have interrogated the bandits who attacked Usato's group. Minister Sergio reveals that these bandits noticed far fewer monsters than usual in that area. Soon after, they were attacked by a herd of fallboars in the forest. This surprising information suggests that the monsters are fleeing the plains for the forest. Siglis predicts that they are fleeing from something horrible, the Demon Lord's army. Unlike their previous battle, the Demon Lord won't underestimate them again and will likely attack everything available. The king instructs his men to inform the war leaders to be prepared and makes a special request to Rose. Normally, he wouldn't ask this of the rescue squad leader, but Rose is ready. She knows the king wants her to gauge the progress of the Demon Lord's army, and he apologizes for the dangerous task. Acknowledging that she's the fastest in the kingdom, Rose agrees to go. The king then asks her to return as battalion commander, but Rose declines, explaining she feels more guilt than he realizes. She was the first healer appointed battalion commander, and the king wonders why she is so self-critical. He realizes she hasn't forgiven herself for her subordinates' deaths, acknowledging no healing can bring them back. The scar on her right eye is a constant reminder. The king insists it's not her burden, but Rose believes they died because of her arrogance. The scar serves as her punishment, and she created the rescue squad to save lives, not to fight. Though the rescue squad saved many lives in the war 2 years ago, it's not enough for Rose. The squad also helps her find a subordinate who won't die. The king argues it's impossible, but Rose explains that's why they train to push beyond limits with healing magic and iron will. She believes Usato embodies these traits with his survival instincts, adaptability, and determination. He reminds her of her fallen comrades, fueling her desire to make him the ideal healer. After her speech, Rose heads for the border, leaving a letter for Usato. The letter reveals no training tomorrow, instead asking him to deliver another letter. Usato wonders about Rose's absence at dinner. Meanwhile, demons build a bridge, and Amila demands total effort for the Demon Lord. The Black Knight, annoyed by her enthusiasm, is reminded that she's his commanding officer. Despite their previous equal rank in the Second Army, Amila now insists on his obedience. The Black Knight begrudgingly agrees, and Amila informs Hiralik that the bridge will be complete in a few hours, marking the beginning of the invasion of the Llinger kingdom. Suddenly, the demons discover a Llinger scout, but Amila dismisses the threat, confident it will be too late by the time the scout spreads the word. Unbeknownst to her, this scout is Rose, who hurls a tree trunk to destroy their bridge from a great distance. Furious, Amila realizes it was Rose. Although this was meant to be a reconnaissance mission, Rose is glad to have bought her kingdom some time. The next day, Usato sets out to deliver the letter, but is puzzled by the stares he receives. Even without Blurren, an old merchant offers him some fruit, but he declines, promising to return later. The creepy girl from earlier also watches him. Upon reaching the flirt clinic, Usato delivers the letter and meets Yuru, who recalls him from her brother Orga's stories. Inside the clinic, run by Orga and Yuru, Usato watches Orga examine a patient. Yuru quietly lets Usato observe, and he's amazed by the intensity and smooth flow of Orga's healing magic, unlike his own. After Orga heals the child, who questions the onlookers, Yuru asks about the rescue squad. Usato shares that they're all still sporting their grim looks. Yuru, once part of the squad, admits she couldn't keep up with the training, unlike Usato. Reading the letter visibly disturbs Orga, but he keeps it secret. Yuru explains that Rose invested heavily in training them when they first joined. They were excited, but Yuru struggled and grew fearful of Rose, who seemed desperate back then. Now, Yuru notes Rose seems happier. Usato, however, believes Rose's happiness stems from having a new punching bag. Suddenly, Orga is informed about an accident involving someone falling off a roof and injuring two others. He asks Usato to accompany him. At the scene, Usato seeks Orga's plan, but the doctor is exhausted. They begin healing, and Usato reflects on his limited experience, realizing that if war breaks out, he'll face more severe injuries, often in battle. Orga reminds Usato to stay calm, emphasizing that the location and identity of the patient don't matter. Usato has the power to heal them, so Orga tells him that he just needs to believe he can do it. These words remind Usato that even Rose believes in him, so he starts believing in himself as well. This calms him greatly, allowing him to heal the person who fell off the roof. Afterwards, the siblings compliment Usato on a job well done, and Orga even asks him to stop by sometime to lend a hand. Usato agrees and heads home. Yuru thinks Orga looked pretty cool giving Usato advice, but Orga becomes serious. The letter revealed that the Demon Lord's army is close, and they have been summoned to war. Usato lacks war experience, so he must rely on absolute confidence in his abilities. Orga is confident that Rose knows what she's doing, but he declares he will do everything he can too. War is coming, but Orga assures his sister that everything will be okay. Usato goes to collect his fruit, but is stopped by a strange girl, who tells him he's the only one who can see it, and that this is a future he can change. Usato is confused, but when her eye begins to glow, he sees horrifying images of war and his friends being killed by the Dark Knight. His heart races, and he's paralyzed with fear. The girl explains that she's done him a favor, and he now has a duty to repay her. Still in shock, Usato chases after her to question her about the vision. The girl watches him nearby, thinking about how he's the only one who can change the future. Usato questions a guard if he has seen a little fox girl, but he hasn't. Rose arrives, scaring the guard away, and Usato pities him for being terrified by her. Understanding his fear, Usato is manhandled by Rose. She wants to hear more about how scary she is, but Usato manages to change the conversation to where she has been. Rose reveals that she destroyed a bridge the demon army was building while scouting. Usato, with his usual sarcasm, points out that she did more than just scout, earning a more rough treatment from Rose. Rose explains that she has seen the fox girl before, who appeared 2 years ago. The girl is only 12 years old but somehow managed to evade bandits and kidnappers to reach the capital. Demi-humans like her are highly valuable to bandits for their physical appearance and, more importantly, for their rare magical abilities. Usato wonders if this rare magic allows her to show people visions of futures they hope never come true. Rose reveals rumors of beastmen who possess the rare ability to use magic called precognition. These beastmen, if they exist, are heavily guarded in the Beastlands. Rose inquires further about Usato's interest, but he dismisses it, claiming he was merely curious after reading about them. That night, the king thanks Rose for buying them some time, but she warns that the demon army is likely constructing another bridge, which will be completed in a few days. The king decides to inform the soldiers and citizens about the impending invasion the next day, but first wants to speak with Sujun and Kazuki before the night ends. On their way to see the king, Usato's friends encounter Celia, leading to an awkward interaction with Kazuki. After exchanging pleasantries, they part ways, and Sujun questions Kazuki about it, but he brushes it off. Elsewhere, Usato lies awake, troubled by a vision he can't change, but remembers the fox girl saying he's the only one who can alter this future. Spotting Kazuki outside, the two discuss their intense training. Kazuki shares that the king informed them the battle with the Demon Lord's army is imminent. Unable to sleep, Kazuki confesses his fear of fighting, recalling his first encounter with monsters when he froze up, realizing only after the fight how seriously he should take everything. Terrified by the Demon Lord's army, he feels immense pressure from everyone's expectations. Usato lightens the mood by complimenting Kazuki's bravery, realizing now that Kazuki does experience fear. He advises Kazuki that he doesn't always have to meet others' expectations and can prioritize himself. Confidently, Usato declares he will fight to save those battling the Demon Lord's army, acknowledging his own fear but firm in his decision. Kazuki reminds Usato of the accidental nature of his involvement and the risk of death, to which Usato agrees but reflects on the significant events since then. There have been tough times, but Usato has met many people who have guided him. He wants to help them, including Kazuki. Usato reassures Kazuki that even if he doesn't fight, they will still be friends. These words are exact what Kazuki needed. He snaps out of his depression and declares his intent to fight to protect Usato and Sujun. Though unsure if he can be a hero, he knows he wants to help his friends. Kazuki refuses to just watch, vowing to fight despite his fear. Having his friends by his side reassures him, and they agree to protect everyone together. Usato feels he just said a lot of corny stuff, but Kazuki assures him it was perfect. Usato hopes to forget his speech with some sleep, but Sujun appears, laughing at their bromance. Usato, too tired to deal with her mockery, knows she followed Kazuki because she sensed something was wrong, and is glad Usato handled it. Usato admits a part of him doesn't want to fight, and Sujun wonders if he doesn't want her to fight either. He would rather she not, but knows she has decided to live in this world. She acknowledges this and leaves, knowing they have a big day ahead. The next day, the king announces the imminent invasion by the Demon Lord's army and plans to intercept them in the grasslands. He recalls how they pushed back the army 2 years ago, noting both sides have grown stronger. It won't be easy, but he reminds everyone that they now have two heroes, Kazuki and Sujun, and the crucial support of the rescue squad. He concludes by assuring them of victory, hyping everyone up. Later, Kazuki visits Celia, apologizing for the unannounced visit. She's glad to see him. He confirms their impending battle, and she prays for his safety. He promises to protect the country and vows to return to see her. Celia, shocked, hopes he will, and they say goodbye. Elsewhere, Yuru fawns over Blurren. Usato lets her pet him, warning that Blurren might not tolerate it. Yuru is convinced they will be best friends, but Blurren repeatedly slaps her hand away. As Blurren keeps slapping her, a little bunny appears, making her feel better. Yet, she can't catch a break as Kokoro and Blurren team up to push her away. Usato prevents Orga from crushing himself to death while watching Yuru persist in petting Blurren. Orga reveals her erratic behavior is due to nerves since it's her first battle, and this is her way of hiding her anxiety. Usato is summoned to see Rose and realizes he's never been to her room before. Fearing she might torture him, he's relieved to find she just wants to talk. She asks him to explain his role on the battlefield. Usato responds that his job is to heal the injured alongside her on the front lines. Rose corrects him, explaining that at the battle's start, the other squad members will bring the wounded to the rear where Usato, Orga, and Yuru will treat them. There won't be many wounded on the front lines initially, so staying there would be dangerous. She warns him not to heal the wrong people on the front lines. When Usato assumes she means not to heal the enemy, Rose calls him an idiot and clarifies that some injured soldiers will still be fighting, and healing them could interfere with their efforts. He must use his judgment to decide who to heal in real time. Rose then gives Usato his rescue squad uniform, designed to make them stand out on the battlefield. Usato is thrilled and puts it on. Rose comments on his increased muscle, which helps him fill out the suit. She manhandles him to emphasize that healers are not immortal and can die like anyone else. She stresses that he must never take his life for granted. When Usato asserts that he doesn't want to die, Rose calls him an idiot again, noting that many who talked like him have died. Being in the rescue squad means he must value his life and avoid self-sacrifice. Rose warns that she will end his life before the enemy does if he disregards his own safety. Usato assures her that he understands and will save everyone, including himself. When Rose questions his resolve, Usato reminds her that she taught him to speak his ideals. Reflecting on his vision, Usato determines that it doesn't matter if it's the future. His priority is to ensure Kazuki and Sujun's safety. Later, the heroes head to a camp to prepare for battle. Yuru complains about the long journey, but they must maintain a safe distance from the kingdom before engaging. Usato wonders about the demons, and Rose explains they look like humans but are stronger with more mana, even among regular soldiers. When Rose asks if he's scared, Usato replies that he knows someone far scarier. Rose can't believe that the little smart mouth who arrived in this world by accident has become as strong as he is. Usato reminds her that it was her intense training that got him there, admitting that, at first, he was just trying to outdo her. Expecting to get yelled at, Usato is surprised when it doesn't happen. Instead, Rose becomes very serious, recalling her old squad. 5 years ago, Rose was the battalion commander of the Llinger Knights. The kingdom received reports of demon sightings in the grasslands near Llinger. The king ordered guards to protect merchants passing through, warning that demons are far stronger than humans and contact should be avoided. Siglis and Rose suspected the demons were planning an invasion. Siglis prepared his troops, and Rose planned to ready her battalion. In her contemplation, she ignored a girl named All trying to get her attention. When Rose finally scolded All for interrupting, All complained that Rose could have hurt her. All asked about the seriousness of the demon situation, but Rose scolded her again for eavesdropping. Rose downplayed the threat to reassure All, who believed they could handle it. Rose reminded her not to underestimate their enemy and decided to oversee everyone's training, much to All's dismay. When they returned home, Rose declared it was time to get everyone back in shape. The other knights blamed All for the impending torture and took out their frustrations on her. All begged for help, but Rose ignored her. A week later, new reports indicated demons attacking monsters in their territory, and Rose was sent to investigate. She informed her knights about the mission, stating there were 10 to 30 enemies. All tried to encourage the knights, but they still blamed her for the intense training. All pointed out that they were stronger because of it, but this only made them more upset. Rose decided that Kokoro, who could detect monsters, would stay home due to the mission's danger. Rose revealed she would join the mission, exciting everyone since they felt invincible with her fighting alongside them. They could fight to their fullest, knowing Rose could heal them if they got injured. All encouraged them to give their best, and they finally agreed with her. The next morning, Rose and her knights made their way through the forest. On the first day, they find nothing, so All explains that the commander has decided to explore the west side of the forest. This area is dangerous, so they will leave their horses behind. The others wonder if they should check other areas first, but All insists it's unnecessary. She has a gut feeling something is on the west side. After considering it, the group agrees, trusting her judgment as their deputy commander. They decide to rest, and Rose takes the first watch. While everyone sleeps, Rose notices All is still awake. Rose jokingly offers to knock her out, but All has a question. She asks why Rose chose her as deputy commander, believing herself to be average and unremarkable. Rose trained everyone to be their best, but All feels she mostly runs errands. Rose points out that All has never failed, so she has no complaints. All admits she always tries her best and is surprised when Rose reveals that this dedication is why she believes All could one day become commander. All is shocked, thinking the others would be upset, and reflects on her past stubbornness. She was known for not following orders and using her strength to silence complaints. Meeting Rose changed things. Rose didn't tolerate her defiance. Rose disciplined her firmly, even knocking her unconscious once. All never wanted Rose to have the upper hand, so she worked hard and hated losing, which was a significant change for her. Unlike others who gave up on her, Rose persisted, which made All respect her. All believes the other knights feel the same. Rose understands them best, making her the only one fit to be their commander. When All expresses her admiration, Rose calls her a brat unwilling to leave the nest, surprising All with her response. Rose then agrees she understands the group well, which is why she chose All as the next commander. She picked All for her resilience and forward thinking, which provides a stable foundation for the others. As long as All remains true to herself, the others will follow her lead. All seems to finally understand, but Rose just wants to wipe the cheesy grin off her face. Rose points out that the world is always changing, and All will need to accept that. However, Rosa assures her that having once been their commander is a fact that will never change. There's no need to overthink it, and All finally gets it. Rose then tells everyone it's time to sleep, and All is shocked to see that everyone was listening. They all express their trust in All, pointing out that they always listen to her when it counts. Embarrassed by the compliments, All threatens to beat them up before the demons do. The next morning, they find signs of demons hunting monsters. It doesn't make sense for demons to come to their territory just for fun, so they suspect there must be another reason. Suddenly, they're interrupted by a loud noise and discover some nearby demons. They are instantly noticed. Rose tells the others to stay back and demands to know what the demons are doing in their territory. The demon explains that he dislikes the mission but must do it as they will benefit greatly in the future. He refuses to elaborate, so Rose tells them to leave quietly and she'll let it slide. The demon is impressed by her boldness but declares he cannot let them live. Rose leaves All in command, explaining she can't give orders while fighting the demon leader. The battle begins, and all declares they will show the demons the power of their teamwork. A demon attacks, but Rose, with insane speed, knocks him back. He doesn't have time to react as Rose follows up, eventually sending him flying. She realizes she can't land a good hit as the demon manipulates the wind instantly, leaving the rest to her knights. Rose goes after the demon leader. She battles him, using giant trees to stop his movements. Her relentless barrage shocks him, but he isn't finished. The demon admits he's never seen a human with her speed, but Rose has no interest in talking and just wants to bash his face in. Surrounded by his wind blades, Rose remains confident. The demon thinks she's foolish to risk crossing the wind blades, but he's shocked when she begins healing herself. Realizing too late what her magic is, he takes a hit. The demon now knows she's a healer. Her immense physical strength and rapid healing make her a formidable melee fighter. He acknowledges her as a monster, and they introduce themselves. The man's name is Nero. He summons his weapon and declares he will now kill Rose. Rose shows no fear and proclaims she'll defeat him first. Meanwhile, in another battle, one fighter uses an ability to put a demon to sleep. Al lands an attack and declares they need to demonstrate the power of Rose's unit. As Rose fights Nero, she realizes his demon sword is cursed and must avoid its touch. Nero manages to cut her face, but she counters and sends him back near the others, then heals herself. Knowing Nero isn't done, she demands he get up. Impressed by her and her skilled subordinates, Nero reconsiders his belief that true heroes no longer exist among humans. Rose and her group have become his biggest obstacle. Nero's sword glows with darkness as he declares the end of the era where demons fear humans, announcing their lord's imminent awakening. This lord, merciless and savage, brings the demons blessings and victory. Nero shocks Rose by releasing immense power, stating he must defeat her group to awaken their lord. As the fight continues, one of Rose's subordinates lands an attack, but the demon remains unaffected. The demon asserts they are merely weapons of the demon lord, willing to die to take down their enemies. Realizing the danger, Rose rushes to help her companion, but is stopped by Nero. The demon fulfills his promise, taking the girl's life and horrifying everyone. Another member of Rose's group is eliminated, revealing the demon's disregard for their own lives. All tries to calm everyone, but another comrade falls. Nero takes credit for the shift in battle, urging his men to sacrifice themselves. Enraged, Rose attacks Nero, but he notes her loss of composure and cuts her eye. She attempts to heal, but Nero reveals his sword nullifies mana, cursing her wound. Her troops beg for healing as they are decimated. Rose tries to end the fight with Nero, but her impaired vision affects her distance judgment. Nero moves in for an attack, and she realizes it's over. He lands a devastating blow, but Rose is shocked as all sacrifices her life to save her. Horrified, Rose sees her entire unit has been eliminated. Rose feels devastated, knowing her team trusted her to keep them safe and believed she would always rescue them. She wishes all had escaped and blames herself for being weak. Nero, determined to finish the fight, declares that the deaths of their subordinates will not be forgotten. He's shocked when Rose stops his blade, and she begins to beat him down, insulting him for his words. Furious, Rose points out that a demon who urges his own troops to sacrifice themselves could never understand. She continues to pommel Nero, explaining that sacrificing oneself in battle is the ultimate humiliation. Rose dominates the fight, pinning Nero to a tree and declaring she will kill him. Though her body is failing, she is determined to end Nero's life. Suddenly, a young girl named Emila appears, worried about Nero, and Rose is confused. She can't understand why anyone would want to save a demon who sacrifices his own subordinates. As Rose tries to stop her, Emila's resemblance to All gives her pause. Emila rescues Nero, and the real All calls out to Rose. Gravely injured, Rose reaches her loyal subordinate and urges her to stop talking so she can heal her. All, knowing the wound is too deep, tells Rose it's impossible. Despite her efforts, Rose's healing fails, but she refuses to give up. All tells her it's hopeless and that she has no regrets. Expressing happiness to have fought by Rose's side, she assures Rose the others felt the same before dying. Rose, in disbelief, refuses to let her die. After All's last words asking Rose to never change, she passes away. Surveying the battlefield, Rose screams in agony at the massacre. Later, Rose reports to the king that the demon lord will soon be resurrected. She declares she no longer has the right to call herself knight and requests to be removed as battalion commander and stripped of her knighthood. Shocked, the king complies with her wishes. A fallen subordinate's family later approaches her. Shamefully, she apologizes for not protecting him, but they thank her for bringing him back so they could see him one last time. They explain that their son was a delinquent who watched anime recap videos all day, but serving under Rose changed him. Rose returns to her empty home and cries in a corner. A month later, Siglis visits her, discussing the king's recent visit. Both share the goal of ensuring Rose hasn't decided to follow her troops to the afterlife. When Rose considers it, Siglis is deeply upset. Rose tells Siglis to calm down, assuring him she wasn't serious. She explains that the demon's curse was temporary, and her wounds are finally starting to heal. Siglis wonders why she hasn't made an effort to heal her eye, but she doesn't answer. When alone, Rose reflects that the scar is a reminder of her failure to protect her subordinates, a punishment to ensure she never forgets. Determined to cherish her life, Rose contemplates her next steps. She considers seeking revenge by defeating as many demons as possible, but realizes that's not the answer. Calming herself, she recalls memories of her team and acknowledges her own weakness, wondering what her subordinates would think of her now. Imagining all beside her, she hears all say they would probably laugh at her. All repeats the words Rose once said by the fire, reminding her that things change and she must move forward. But her role as the leader will never change. They both agree not to overthink things, and all reminds her of her last words, that Rose should never change. The others seem to agree, reminding Rose that she would punch them if she saw them acting this way. Rose realizes her foolishness in focusing solely on their deaths, remembering how her subordinates always faced forward with smiles. Snapping out of her depression, she vows never to show weakness again. Rose promises to be someone they can admire. Removing her bandages, she declares she knows what she must do. With a massive battle against the demon lord approaching, she decides to create a force dedicated to saving lives. Understanding that many soldiers will be sent to their doom, she vows not to let them die. Her force will need at least 5 people, including 2 healers. Most importantly, they need someone like her, a healer who can fight and eliminate threats on the battlefield. This would be impossible for a normal person, but if she finds someone like that, they might have a chance to fight alongside her without dying. Back in the present, Rose startles Usato by expressing her gladness in finding him. She points out that he doesn't realize how precious his own life is. Not just any healer can achieve his strength through training. She asks him to imagine a world with more healers like herself, but Usato quips that such a world would be destroyed. Rose explains that she developed a technique to push herself beyond her limits using healing magic. It's incredibly difficult, and only she and Usato can do it. She believes Usato possesses all the qualities she has ever wanted in a healer and is confident he won't die. Usato accepts the compliments, but Rose is disgusted by his cheesy grin. Elsewhere, Amila is informed that the bridge has been completed. The demon knight is pleased and Amila reminds him he can go wild when the battle starts. The knight, confident, warns that the battle might end quickly since they're just up against humans. Amila cautions him not to underestimate them, mentioning the so-called kidnappers who steal the wounded. The knight isn't worried, assuming they just run away, but Amila clarifies that they are actually formidable. The knight is glad to hear this, as he craves a challenge that makes him feel alive. Later, the lingering army finishes setting up camp. Usato wakes up, anticipating the battle. Suzune, also awake, shows off her amazing armor. Usato is unsure what to say, but Suzune helps by explaining how it boosts her lightning magic and doesn't hinder her movement. Usato assumes she values armor over cute things, but Suzune reveals she grows cacti at home. Usato doesn't find cacti cute, offending Suzune. As he tries to calm her, Kazuki steps in to save him. Suzune, determined to win Usato over, is interrupted by Kazuki, who informs them that Siglis wants to see them. Siglis explains that the demon lord's army will arrive in half an hour. The plan is to launch a preemptive strike with magic, followed by Suzune and Kazuki leading the attack to carve a path to the enemy general. If possible, they are to defeat the general. As they wait at the border of their base, Kazuki asks Suzune if she's worried about Usato. She admits she is, but also feels empowered because Usato accepts her for who she is. Kazuki, ever the gossip, wants to know more, but Suzune decides to tell him after they return safely. Just then, they sense something. The demon army appears. The lingering army prepares their magic, and so do our heroes. They launch their spells at the army, but are shocked when the demons suddenly disappear. They realize it was illusion magic and are shocked to find the army approaching from a different direction. Nearby, Rose instructs her men to head onto the battlefield. Their mission is to bring back the injured, but most importantly, they must return alive. Orga and Yuru will stay in a tent, guarded by a kid named Ruku. Rose and Usato will head to the battlefield later. But for now, they'll heal the wounded at the base. Usato is worried about his friends, but Yuru reminds him to think of himself, especially since he will eventually be on the battlefield too. Just then, Tong arrives with the first injured, and they quickly begin healing. Usato is initially nervous seeing the severe damage, but he manages to start healing. His patient, frantic, explains that a giant snake blew her away. Usato wonders if it's the same snake he fought, but focuses on healing. On the battlefield, the snake causes serious damage to the lingering army. The Black Knight is disappointed by the humans' weak resistance, but is then stabbed from behind. The soldier declares victory, but is shocked when he is stabbed next. He can't understand how this is possible, and the Black Knight points out the human's weakness. The soldier wonders what kind of monster the knight is, but the knight isn't sure how to answer. The soldier tries to escape to warn others, but the knight grows tired of him. Just as the knight prepares to kill him, Gerd distracts him with his special stinky water and runs off with the injured soldier. The knight realizes this was one of the kidnappers and laughs. Anticipating more fun, he considers chasing him, but gets distracted by something more interesting. Gerd returns with the kid, and the others rush to heal him. Rose decides it's time to head out, and Usato is ready. She tells the others they are leaving and reminds the guard to protect them with his life. As they leave, Rose tells Usato about an enemy in black armor who uses peculiar magic. She warns Usato to be careful, reminding him of the Black Knight in his vision. Usato freezes, and Rose wonders if he can take a life. Usato insists his job is to save lives, but Rose calls him a fool for saying that in the face of death. She shares a technique for situations like this, which we don't hear. Whatever she says works, as Usato is now ready for battle, and they split up. Usato sees the battlefield for the first time, and it's grim, with casualties everywhere. He rescues someone from being killed, but must quickly dodge an attack. Rose also makes her presence known by rescuing someone. Usato tells the man he saved that he healed him while carrying him, so after a bit of rest, he should be ready to fight again. Elsewhere, Sujin amazes the other troops with her powerful magic and instructs them to take any injured back to base. Although Sujin is clearly bothered by all the casualties, she puts up a strong front for Kazuki. He warns her about a powerful snake causing serious damage, and Sujin reminds him that they must clear a path to the enemy general. They decide to take down the snake, but are shocked when confronted by a Black Knight. Our heroes have no idea who this monstrous demon is, but they can tell he is unlike any soldier they have fought before. Sujin tries to tell the troops to stay back, but it's too late as they send their spears through the night. The Dark Knight seems unfazed, and Sujin wonders if he feels any pain. The knight is able to morph his body and push them away, so Sujin orders the troops to fall back. It's too late, however, as the troops take serious damage. Sujin stops Kazuki from attacking next, and the knight is impressed by his light magic. Sujin explains she stopped Kazuki because she realized the knight's magic reflects attacks back to the attacker. Her assumption is correct as Kazuki takes damage under his armor. The knight's magic reflects all damage dealt to its armor back to his opponents, and he is impressed since no one has figured it out this quickly. He wants the heroes to struggle before he takes their lives. Nearby, Usato runs through the battlefield but experiences a vision that causes him serious pain, which his healing magic cannot stop. Usato worries something bad happened to his friends, but quickly starts running again. He ends up in a bad spot, but is rescued by the man he healed earlier. The man tells him where the heroes are, so Usato rushes to them, hoping they are still alive. Back with the heroes, the Black Knight has his troops fight the weaker ones, and Sujin declares they must defeat him. Kazuki points out there's nothing they can do since the knight reflects all attacks. Sujin tells Kazuki her plan, but he thinks it's too dangerous. Kazuki is clearly terrified, but Sujin reminds him Usato can always heal them if they fail. The fight begins, and Sujin starts by obstructing the knight's vision. The two heroes follow up with attacks, hoping the knight won't be able to reflect damage he can't see. This isn't the case, though, as the two heroes get hurt from their attacks. Sujin thinks they failed but realizes the attack she landed on his back wasn't reflected. Kazuki thinks she is crazy for wanting to try again, but realizes she has figured something out. The two make their approach again, but this time Sujin powers up to increase her speed. Kazuki, knowing her plan, uses his light magic to blind the knight. The knight scoffs at their tricks, but is stunned when Sujin stabs him from behind. She has realized that the knight can't reflect attacks he can't perceive, and now he can't even say reflect. So she signals Kazuki to finish him off. As Kazuki moves in for the final blow, the knight reveals he was pretending. He activates his reflect ability, causing serious damage to Sujin. Kazuki fares worse, as the knight completely pierces his body. The knight knew Sujin's thoughts all along and explains that his ability doesn't rely on vision or perception. He can choose what attacks to reflect. He even deliberately took the hit on his back to mislead Sujin, declaring that no one has ever injured him, and no one ever will. The knight watches as Sujin begins to panic. Meanwhile, Usato is still rushing to them. Sujin collapses, wishing she could apologize to Usato. A flashback shows Kazuki and Sujin complimenting each other on improving school regulations. Just before Sujin met Usato without an umbrella, she reflects on how lucky she was to meet him that day, excited to start anew in a different world. Usato, unlike her, knew exactly what to do to survive in this new world. Most importantly, Sujin was happy he accepted her true self, not the facade she once showed. She believed everything would be fine with Kazuki and Usato by her side. Sadly, this is not the case as we return to the present where Sujin collapses before the Black Knight. Other demons celebrate, and the knight prepares to end Sujin's life. Commending her for making it fun, he prepares to behead her. At that moment, Usato declares the knight won't harm her on his watch and delivers a powerful punch to the knight's face. Usato is horrified, realizing he didn't make it in time to save his friends. Things improve when he starts healing them. But the Black Knight is furious. She demands to know who attacked her, and Sujin notices the Black Knight is actually a girl. She attacks, but Usato runs off with his friends. He narrowly dodges a demon's attack, and Sujin quickly counters with her own strike. Fully healed, Sujin knows Kazuki will recover soon. She has urgent news for Usato, but they're interrupted by the Black Knight. Before the knight can reach them, Sujin informs Usato about the Black Knight's armor, likely made of mana, which can reflect any attack. However, Usato's attack had an effect, leading Sujin to wonder about its nature. The knight, seeking revenge, interrupts again. Usato, reluctant to fight, feels compelled to protect and heal the other soldiers. As he prepares to fight, Sujin worries, but Usato reassures her to look after Kazuki. Usato envelops himself in healing magic and quickly learns the armor can morph. He decides to attack despite potential reflections since he can heal himself. He soon realizes his attacks aren't being reflected, possibly due to the knight running out of mana. Surprised, the knight takes a two-punch combo from Usato. Enraged, the knight demands Usato's death, but he persists. Kazuki regains consciousness, and Sujin tells him Usato saved them. The knight celebrates, piercing Usato's hand, but everyone is shocked when her attacks have no effect. Kazuki is puzzled as Usato remains in a healing state. Sujin realizes the knight's weakness is healing magic. Usato surprises the knight with a powerful punch. His healing-infused fists bypass the armor's reflection, causing pain but no wounds. Sujin thinks this fighting style is the craziest use of healing magic. The knight, unable to believe her defeat, unleashes a massive power, pushing Usato back. His friends worry, but Usato assures them he will end the fight. The knight readies a massive attack, but Usato, determined to prevent further harm, powers up with healing magic. They charge at each other, colliding powers, struggling to see who will prevail. Usato pushes himself beyond all limits, eventually overpowering the knight and delivering the most powerful punch ever seen. The battle around them halts as everyone watches the intense fight. Usato's attack radiates healing magic, stripping the knight of his armor completely. Usato emerges victorious, declaring this move the ultimate healing punch. He immediately starts healing the other soldiers, who credit him for causing the demons to flee. Sujin notes that there would have been far more casualties if he hadn't won. She tells the soldier to leave as she wants to learn about Usato's technique. Usato explains it's just a regular punch imbued with healing magic, taught by Rose. The secret technique involves covering a punch in healing magic, healing the enemy with each hit until they are knocked out. This method immobilizes without causing injury, just pain and impact. Usato thinks it's awesome, and Sujin realizes he's falling under Rose's influence. She thanks him for helping, and he says he was just aiding friends. With the giant snake moving to the front lines, Sujin decides they must fight their next. Usato plans to join, but Rose demands an update. Surprised by Usato's success, she praises him for saving his friends and demoralizing the enemy. The battlefield is now under control, so she decides they should return to camp. Usato informs his friends, who promise to treasure the lives he saved. They say their goodbyes, and Usato runs off. Under her breath, Rose commends him for surviving but pretends she didn't say it. At the enemy camp, Amila is shocked to hear of the Black Knight's defeat. She refuses to believe someone overcame her magic and is even more stunned to learn it was someone from the rescue team. Assuming it was Rose, she is told it was someone else. Amila can't believe there's another person like Rose and decides they must withdraw. Considering fighting herself but not wanting to leave their base vulnerable, especially with Sigla still on their side, Hiralik gets ready to fetch his giant snake, but he is shocked to see the heroes have already taken it down. They refuse to let Usato go and prepare to eliminate the snake. Meanwhile, back at camp, Usato is busy healing soldiers, but has to sternly tell one of them he's not joking around. Everyone is focused on healing, and they are awestruck by the hero's massive attack. Usato's friends, though exhausted, manage to defeat the giant snake, and everyone celebrates. Rose informs Usato that the enemy is retreating, and he wonders if they will chase them. She calls him an idiot since the demons greatly outnumber them. Their priority now is to minimize casualties while preparing for the next attack. Rose declares they won this battle because Usato saved the heroes. Usato humbly thinks Rose would have come if he hadn't, but she reveals the heroes would have died, and he indeed saved them. They might have even lost the entire battle. So Rose finally compliments him for his work in the rescue squad. Usato reflects on all his hard work and becomes emotional, not understanding why, while Rose realizes he's more of a kid than she thought. Usato admits he was really scared on the battlefield, seeing many lose their lives. However, he is glad to have met Rose, which allowed him to save many people. Rose shares that she once knew people who said similar things, but they only exist in her memories now. Usato is still here, so she compliments him for coming back alive. Usato gratefully accepts her praise, but is exhausted and passes out. Rose is proud of his endurance and lets him rest. Some time later, Usato explains he was summoned to the castle after returning from the war. Though nervous at first, he was happy to receive his first ever reward. Blurn is too busy eating to listen, and Usato wonders if the little bear has gained weight. Gummel arrives, telling him he's been summoned to the castle again, and warns him to be careful in town. Usato wonders why, but soon finds out as a crowd of townspeople surrounds him. Overwhelmed by the attention, he doesn't notice a mysterious girl nearby. Usato escapes the crowd, and a guard thanks him for saving his comrades. Usato modestly points out that everyone was just doing their part in the war and the soldiers also protected him. The kid is thrilled to hear that Usato wouldn't mind having him as his bodyguard someday, and his friend points out that he's strong enough to join the Royal Knights. Usato then goes to speak with the king, who asks him to lend his strength. Usato agrees, and Siglis reveals they need his help to interrogate the Black Knight. Usato wonders if she's been violent to others, but they reveal she surprisingly lacks loyalty to the Demon Lord's army. She's been answering their questions willingly, but they haven't been able to get the most critical information. They want to know the magic system of the commanding officers and their powers. She has agreed to answer these questions, but only if she gets to see Usato first. Sujue escorts him to see the Black Knight, promising to protect him if she tries anything. Usato quickly points out that Sujin already lost to her before, so she vows to at least be a meat shield for him. Usato can't understand how he defeated the Black Knight, but Siglis explains that her affinity for black magic was cancelled out by Usato's healing magic. Usato realizes their magic cancelled each other out and begins to panic as he realizes something else. If his healing magic was cancelled, he wasn't healing her, and he wonders if she's received medical attention. She hasn't, as she's been wearing her armor since regaining consciousness, so Usato rushes to see her. He knows she must be hurt since she was taking all his punches directly without any healing. Usato's fist can shatter boulders, so he knows her wounds must be bad. The Black Knight doesn't care and accepts living in pain. Sujin breaks the tension by suggesting she must be a masochist, but Usato is not amused. The knight isn't sure why she wanted to see Usato, assuming it's to meet the person who hurt her so badly. Usato convinces Siglis to let him into the cell, and he asks for her hand. She assumes he wants to torture her, but he just demands she listen to him. Usato begins healing her, but she panics as it starts to remove her armor. Usato tells her to let him heal her, and she calms down, realizing that healing feels nice. Usato would like his hand back, but she wants to hold on a bit longer, having never felt such a nice feeling. Tears pour down her face, so Usato decides he can't say no. Afterwards, Rose decides she will personally train Usato again since the Demon Lord's army will be attacking. There are some things she wants him to learn to be prepared, and Usato states he wants to level up his healing magic. He still can't heal complex issues like illnesses, and he's disappointed to learn that such skills are currently beyond his reach. His physical abilities are satisfactory, so they won't be training that either. Usato wonders what their focus will be, and is shocked when Rose says she will be punching him. She plans to punch faster than he can react, and his task is to dodge. Rose prevents him from escaping and notes that he relies too much on his healing magic. Healing magic won't work on cursed weapon wounds, so he must learn to dodge. Usato is upset about her wanting to punch her subordinate, but she is pleased to see him so energized. She launches him into the sky, but he lands safely. Rose tells him not to block her next attack, then blasts him in the stomach. Later, Usato wakes up and thinks it was a nightmare. However, Rose is waiting for him to regain consciousness and notes that he should be happy since she was holding back. Usato thanks her, and they resume training. After 3 intense days, Usato complains about the grueling sessions. Whenever he gets close to dodging her attacks, Rose punches even faster. Usato vents to the Black Knight, who is surprised to see him. Usato has no training today and wonders what the Black Knight will do now. She points out that she's in prison and becomes shy as she tries to ask him something. Usato leaves, and Rose meets with the king, who has 2 requests for her. Usato visits Kazuki, who is doing some interesting training. Celia explains that Kazuki wants to become stronger. Usato sees Celia's admiration for Kazuki and feels upset about his own harsh training. Celia reveals that they got valuable information from the Black Knight, thanks to Usato, which has increased the king's trust in him. Kazuki also trusts Usato and mentions he would be dead without him, but stops to avoid worrying Celia. Usato eventually leaves, but Celia demands to know what Kazuki was going to say. On his way home, Usato wonders about the Black Knight's fate, fearing they might want to end her life. In her cell, the Black Knight wonders about Usato's visit, but hears footsteps and hopes it's him. It turns out to be Rose, sent by the king. Rose explains the Black Knight has 2 options: spend the rest of her life in prison or hear the second option. The Black Knight assumes they want to end her life, but Rose reveals she isn't that lucky and opens the cell. The Black Knight begins to panic, and Rose explains that the second option is to let her take the knight under her wing. The Black Knight thinks the idea is crazy, but Rose shows her what crazy really is by karate chopping her head. Rose then places a magic tool on her to seal her mana. She declares that keeping her in prison would be a waste of the kingdom's resources, so the only way forward is to reform her into an upright demon, despite believing she had 2 options. The Black Knight realizes Rose has already decided for her. Fearful of Rose's plans, she is knocked out. Back home, Usato runs with Blurrin to help him get back in shape. Rose interrupts with a kick, reminding him he's supposed to be resting. Usato is shocked to see her with the Black Knight. When he demands an explanation, Rose reveals she plans to reform the knight as an errand runner for the rescue team. With her magic sealed and under Rose's supervision, Usato has nothing to worry about. Rose assures him she'll train the knight the same way she trained him, prompting Usato to pity the poor demon when she wakes up. That night, Usato reports to Rose. Despite the knight's initial complaints, a bath calmed her down, and she went to bed. Rose then shares that the king wants to ally with other countries against the demon lord's army. He needs messengers to deliver missives to these countries and has chosen Sujin, Kazuki, and Usato. Usato can't believe the king chose him, but Rose explains the king has great trust in him. The kingdom's fate depends on this mission, and Rose agrees that Usato will succeed. The next day, some Usato fangirls wish him luck and run off. A vendor apologizes for the crowd from the other day, but Usato reassures him it's fine, reflecting on how kind the townspeople are. Usato reminds himself that his mission is to protect them. Sujin calls it fate when she finds him, but Usato points out it's common to see people at the market. Just then, Usato spots the mysterious fox girl and rushes after her. He captures her and demands a conversation, shocked when she says she's been waiting for him. She insists he must save her mother, leaving Usato stunned. Suzune, however, is more concerned with how adorable she is. Usato scolds her, and the fox girl reminds him to put her down. She introduces herself as Amako and insists they go somewhere to talk. Meanwhile, the knight is exhausted from Rose's training. The others mock her for being slow, but she refuses to be compared to ogres like them. These men, feeling insulted, demand respect as humans and easily outrun her. The knight collapses and begins to give up, but Rose appears to motivate her. Usato has brought home the fox girl, and Sujin can't stop gushing over her. Usato wonders if Suzune will be a problem for Amako, but Amako is fine with her because she knows the hero will keep her secret. Usato is surprised to hear that Amako knows Sujun is a hero. But that's not all she knows. She also knows a lot about Usato and his healing magic. Usato wants to know why Amako showed him the vision where his friends met their demise. But Sujun is shocked as this is the first time she's hearing about it. Amako reveals that she had to show him. Otherwise, the entire country would have been destroyed. She explains that her magic allows her to see the future and she was in search of a healer, which is why she left the Beastlands. The Beastlands are far away, but she had no choice as she wanted to save her mother. Only humans can use healing magic, but no matter where Amako looked, she couldn't find a healer. Usato points out that Orga and Yuru are both healers, but Amako explains that they can't fight. Rose is the only other person who matches what she was looking for, but she is really scary, and Amako had already seen a vision of Rose declining her request. Amako could tell right away that Usato would come with her, which is why she showed him the future. Amako pleads with him to come to the Beastlands to save her mother. But Sujun explains that Usato is really important to their country right now. Just then, Usato shocks everyone by thinking there might be a way to help. They have a mission to deliver letters to other countries, and he might be able to stop by the Beastlands to help. Usato goes to get permission and tells Amako to scream if Sujun tries to do something weird. When Usato tells Rose about the fox girl, she demands that they immediately inform the king. Future seers like Amako are very valuable to the Beastmen, so if they find out they are harboring one, they might attack. This isn't all bad, though, since it means his request to go to the Beastlands might be granted because of it. When Usato returns, Amako can instantly see the future and knows they will have to wait for the king's decision. Sujun gets frustrated seeing them have such a deep connection that they don't even need words to communicate. But Usato just thinks she's being a weirdo as usual. Amako heads home, but thanks Usato first. Usato thanks her since she was the reason he could save his friends. That night, one of the guys gets insulted when the knight doesn't want to eat his food. She isn't interested in being friendly. But Usato arrives and tells her to eat too. The knight realizes that this living hell is never going to end, so she has to be thrown back in jail. Just then, Usato gives her a diary like he had and recommends that she try writing everything in it, explaining that it will make her feel better. The knight begins to warm up and finally starts eating. From then on, she documents everything in her diary. The training is brutal, and on the day she runs with Usato, she's shocked to see that he never runs out of breath. To her, he seems like an inhuman human. One day, she hears something from the forest and skips training to investigate. It turns out to be Usato. Usato is getting pummeled by Rose, but the knight is amazed he's still alive after such a beating. Rose yells at him to dodge better, and he yells back that he can't when she changes trajectory so much. They argue, but Rose tells him to save the talking for when he can finally avoid her punches. He's only mastered taking the punches, so they need to keep working until he can dodge them. The knight is in shock, and Rose instantly disappears. But she's even more in awe when Usato dodges her attack. Usato celebrates too early, though, and gets hit by a kick. Since he managed to dodge the first attack, Rose allows him to return to his normal training. The knight is still in shock, so Rose tells her to continue training under Usato's watch. Usato talks about how monstrous Rose is, but the knight thinks it's obvious that Usato is a bit of a monster himself. Usato realizes he's asking late but finally asks her name. She reveals it's Felm, explaining that not many people have called her that. Just then, Lurin arrives ready for exercise, but Felm is upset that Usato didn't even try to use her name. Usato is already busy running with his buddy, so Felm takes off, refusing to lose to him. That night, Usato explains that Felm exhausted herself by running full speed without thinking of the consequences. He healed her so she could sleep. The guys wonder what he did to the poor demon girl, but Usato just says he ran like normal. They point out that Usato's normal isn't really normal for a human, but Usato gets furious and insists he's far more human than even the captain. The guys prepare to fight, but a very angry Rose stops them. Usato heals himself, and they all apologize to Rose. Later, Felm wakes up hungry and overhears that Usato will speak with the king the next morning about delivering the letters. The next morning, Felm sneaks away from the house. Under Rose's orders, Usato brings Amako with him to speak with the king. King Lloyd immediately thanks the little fox girl for helping save the kingdom from falling to the demon lord's army. He wants to repay her, so he allows Usato to visit the Beastlands with Amako. Usato thanks the king, and it's clear that Amako is very grateful. Welchi gives him the details. revealing that he will be going to 4 different countries. The first 3 will be to deliver letters, and the last will be to the Beastlands. Welchi, Kazuki, and Sujin will accompany them to the first country, but it will just be Usato and Amako after that. The 2 of them will be accompanied by 2 knights, and Usato is allowed to choose them. Aruko is shocked to hear that Usato chose him, and reminds Usato that he is clumsy. Aruko explains that he can only protect one thing at a time, which is why he guards the gates. Usato assumes that he's declining the request, but Aruko decides that he can leave the job of protecting the gates to one of his comrades. Aruko agrees to go and swears to protect Usato and Amako with his life. As for the other knight, Usato has already chosen, and he points in a direction. Everyone is surprised to see the happy-go-lucky Blurren playing with a butterfly. Elsewhere, Thelma is running for her life. Chased by Rose, Rose sends her flying, furious that she tried to run away. Rose thought Thelma might be trying to run back to the Demon Lord to inform him about the letters Usato is delivering. But she ruled that out since Thelma was going in the opposite direction. Thelma reveals her real intentions, wondering why Rose isn't more worried about Usato going so far away. Rose explains that she isn't worried at all because Usato is a healer nearly as good as she is. He's not going to die easily. But Rose is shocked to see that Thelma seems to be worried about him. She assumes that Thelma was trying to join him on his journey, but Thelma denies it as much as she can. Thelma tries to say she was just getting tired of all the training, but Rose decides to show her what tired really looks like and instructs her to run back to the house. Usato informs Thelma that he will be leaving the next day and assumes that she will miss him. Thelma gives him a good kick and complains that it's not fair he gets to escape from this hellish training. Thelma lets out more of her frustration and runs off. Rose arrives to inform Usato that this journey will be unlike anything he's experienced before. The truth is that healing magic is looked down upon in most places. If Usato encounters someone with this mindset, Rose wants him to beat them up. Usato isn't surprised that she wants him to resort to violence, and she points out that it's the best way to set those kinds of people straight. Rose then gets serious, noting that this journey will change Usato for better or worse. She believes in him and expects great things. This is great for Usato to hear, and he admits to himself that he trusts Rose a lot. He reiterates how he wants to continue living in this world, together with Rose and the people of the kingdom. Usato goes to say goodbye to the siblings, and Amako says goodbye to her human caretaker. The heroes bid farewell to the princess, and Celia expresses her unwavering faith in them. As they embark on their journey, Usato ponders the adventures that lie ahead. We catch a glimpse of their future encounters, filled with new and intriguing characters. Nearby, an exhausted Thelma questions where Rose is leading her. Watching the group depart, Rose notices Usato spotting her. She urges Thelma to stop wasting time and resume training. Usato then refocuses on the journey with his friends. Having adapted to this world, Usato is now prepared for the grand adventure full of mystery and excitement. Thanks for watching my recap.